Welcome to Introduction to Historic Newspapers. This is the first in a series of video tutorials coming your way on this topic. My name is Amanda. I'm a reference librarian here at the Flower Memorial Library, and I will be your guide today. So, why newspapers? Newspapers are commonly thought of when searching for birth announcements, marriage announcements, and obituaries. But there is so much more contained on the pages inside. Newspapers also allow you to escape form document limitations. Think of your census, those rows and columns and the specific information that they are asking for. Newspapers and their articles provide a lot more outside of those little boxes. It's also a potential gold mine for the skeletons in your family closet. Little hidden gems, little stories that you might not have been aware of that might have been skipped passing from generation to generation could be contained on the pages of the newspaper. Newspapers help you delve into their life details. Essentially, you are revisiting their world. What was happening in their community? What was happening globally? And the impact that that then had on their daily lives. Social gatherings, gossip, legal announcements, business ads are all little pieces of information to help put the puzzle together. I like to think of early newspapers as the first form of social media. Social gatherings and gossip were reported on like the news. You found out so-and-so and so-and-so had dinner together. You found out what they had for a meal. You learn about local gossip. And you also learn a lot of quirky stories about events that seemed newsworthy at the time. Here's an example of family history that might not have been passed from generation to generation. Young Grover Hollenbeck was struck in the pit of the stomach by a cabbage thrown by his young brother, and for hours lay rigid and apparently dead, save for an occasional gasp. His recovery is expected. This was newsworthy for the December 1st, 1906 edition of the Watertown Daily Times. Do you have any relations from Blodgett's Mills? Any Hollenbecks in your family line? On February 17th, 1912, we learn about a wedding anniversary party that was thrown to celebrate 40 years. Dancing was indulged in till the early hours of the morning, and they were presented with a handsome salad dish and cake plate. I'm always curious about what was in that handsome salad. Emma Flower Taylor holds a special place in our hearts here at the Flower Memorial Library. This article talks about how her residence at 241 Clinton Street was tendered to the government to be used as summer convalescent home for American soldiers during the duration of the war. It goes on to talk about her restrictions and how her home was able to accommodate 60 to 100 patients. Do you have relatives from Smith's Corners? If you do, you might spot their names on this page from April 27th, 1950. This is detailing different social gatherings that were occurring or had occurred in recent weeks, from dinner guests to weekend visits and more. Before you begin, it is important to get organized. Who or what are you concentrating on? Plan out multiple search sessions. That way, each time you are exploring an historic newspaper, you're there for a specific purpose. Otherwise, you could find yourself easily distracted by the content of the pages. Brainstorm a list to help you with that searching. Surnames, dates, locations, immigration information. All of these will help shape your search results. Searching tips will be shared in more detail in a coming tutorial, but here are a few things to keep in mind in case you're anxious to get started. Be careful of date limitations. If you are restricting your search to a certain time period, your event could fall just before or just after, and therefore would not show up in your search results. Search multiple ways. This is why, as mentioned before, it's important to brainstorm that list of search options. That way you're prepared when you delve in. Look for your result boxes. Many databases providing access to historic newspapers show glimpses on the page of where your search terms appear. So the image on the screen this time shows little red boxes. So that helps focus your eye on where your content searched for might appear on that page. And copy your persistent link for future reference. And don't forget to copy your persistent link for future reference. This will bring you back to the exact article that you found related to that search. Here are a few considerations to keep in mind as you start looking into historic newspapers. What was the publisher's focus? How frequently was the newspaper published? Chronicling America, Historic American Newspapers is a great resource to help you learn more about the dates a particular title was in existence for newspapers. How long would it take for news to travel? And look beyond your county lines. If an event happened in Jefferson along the Oswego border, it could be that an Oswego County paper would have picked up the story. Here are a few more. The size of the community, prominent versus average citizens. Obituaries are scarce before 1900, and holdings may be listed incorrectly, so always look into the link versus relying on the information presented. Copyright is another concern. While researching historic newspapers, it is important to consider the year in which the content was published. Could it be found online? Is it only available on microfilm? Potentially. There are two main deciding factors. One being copyright restrictions. The publisher owns the content and therefore requires special permissions to digitize said content, which can be costly. Many libraries are focused on digitizing what's currently available in the public domain. The public domain is the term used for items whose copyright has expired. Therefore, works published before January 1st, 1925 are fair game for digitizing without extra expense and permissions needing to be granted. This is set by the calendar year and not from the actual published date. So items even published December 30th, 1925 will become available as of that January 1st, 2021 date. But why is everything still not available online? Basically, it comes down to money. Digitization is costly. Even for items in the public domain, the equipment, the time, the server space, all need to be considered when starting a digitization project. Are you looking for help? You can always call the reference desk or our genealogy departments. Their numbers are listed on your screen. You can also email your questions directly to our genealogy department. Thank you for watching our Introduction to Historic Newspapers, and stay tuned for the next tutorial diving into searching tips and tricks.